my name is Trina. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to give a quick mid-year update on my reading journal for the year because this is my very first year attempting a reading journal and I would really like to put out what I've tried so far and get some feedback and have some conversations about ideas and in general just reflect on how my journaling style has changed through the first half of 2025. This isn't my first time ever journaling, but last year I had a all-in-one journal. Essentially, I talked about books in there, I talked about my life in there, I talked about travel in there, I put it all in there in one place. I spent a lot of time on it that I just didn't want to spend this year. I wanted to take a break from like that super artistic style of journaling and wanted to split up my attempts into different journals. I have now a travel journal where I save memorabilia from trips I've taken and put it in along with some notes about the things I've seen and the places I've gone to. I also have a general bullet journal, I would say, a more traditional style bullet journal where I track different habits that I want to focus on, and I do one line a day for just keeping track of my life and what's going on in it. Kind of like an abridged diary because I'm always really bad about keeping up with diaries, but I've been keeping up with this one pretty well so far. And of course, lastly, and most importantly, the one that I probably put the most art into, at least attempts at art, obviously, I'm not an artist, is my reading journal. In the beginning of the year, I set up this reading journal. I put in like spreads that I wanted to keep up with throughout the year, tracking spreads, but also throughout the first half of the year, I've been adding monthly tracking information and a couple of individual spreads for books or themes that I really like. And so I'm really excited to go through my progress on the progress spreads and share with you some of my monthly spreads as well. I'll now take you over to the desk view of my reading journal. Hi, hello. Welcome to my mid-year journal flip through. As I mentioned, this isn't like my best work or anything like that. Last year, here I can show you, my journal last year was all art by me, like very few stickers, if any, for my bookshelves. I can show you an example. Most of my bookshelf pages looked something like this or something like this, but this was a lot of work last year, so I decided that this year, for my reading only journal, I wanted to incorporate more stickers and different styles, and I'm not the best at it yet, but I'm hoping to share some of the things I did come up with, and then hopefully people can also share some of the stuff that they might have suggestions for or they came up with in their own reading journals. But for my 2025 reading journal, I have my goals, my table of contents that I need to update, and here is the current status of my library so far. It's currently 3 pages. This pretty much goes up until the end of March of my reading. This one covers the rest of March through June, and then this page covers June so far. I still have this page left for the rest of the year. I'm hoping it's enough. I'm not totally sure if it's going to be enough, honestly, but I am imagining that in the fall I'm going to have a little bit less time to read, so hopefully this will be enough space. If not, then I'll just add a page somewhere deeper in the journal. This is currently the state of my 100 books reading challenge, so I'm really close to completing that. I really like how the color coding turned out here. I definitely have checked out fewer physical library books than I meant to because I've been living kind of like out in the countryside, like away from any libraries. And I did give it gray intentionally because I knew I wouldn't be reading as many of them, but I still think the other 3 colors for ebooks, physical books, and audiobooks turned out like a pretty good blending altogether, and I really like it. Here's the current status of my 25 books that I want to read in 2025. How many have I read? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I've currently read 12, so that's about halfway. I would say that's pretty close. A lot of the ones I have left, like these down here, are much shorter books. This one's also a shorter book. Like I've knocked out a lot of the biggest books on this list, so that's really, really nice. I would say the challenges I probably have left, getting to the Swedish version of Beartown by Fredrik Backman is going to be a challenge because I've not been in the mood to read that, but I need to get back to it. And then maybe Rebecca might be a challenge. I know that's a longer one, but honestly, I think I'm feeling pretty good about this. I've gotten some of my hardest ones, like the Brothers Karamazov, out of the way already. Here's the status of my current monthly statistics page, where I've filled out like just the stats I want to keep track of each month. I really like keeping track of which mediums I was reading each month in separate columns so I can sort of see what was most popular for the certain months. Like when I did my physical TBR reading vlog in February, that's when I read the most for my physical TBR. So maybe I'm due for another physical TBR reading vlog because clearly that was the most successful effort I've had there. And I also like keeping track of pages read because it's a little bit different than books read. For example, in April I read the most books, but I read a bunch of novellas. So it actually ended up being March where I read the most amount of pages. Here's the current status of my book buying tracker. I pretty much gave myself this many rows and said I wouldn't buy any more than this. I don't know how that's looking honestly because it's not a lot of space left, and you'll see some of these are much expensive out of my budget. God, don't look at it. But I do like that I've included which bookshops I bought things at so that I can make sure I'm buying from local places or used bookshops for the most part. I've actually added a few more things to my release radar since the beginning of the year as well as things have come up, such as The Forsaken and the Fated that I'm interested in reading as well. House of the Beast seems really cool, and moving things around as they go, but I still haven't heard of any new releases in November and December, so I'm gonna have to keep a lookout for that. And the current state of my series tracker, honestly, it could be going worse, it could be going better. I've added 4 more series to this since the beginning of the year: The Murderbot Diaries, The Memoirs of Lady Trent, The Devoured Worlds, and Her Majesty's Royal Coven, all of which I started this year and all of which I want to keep myself on track of. I've started other series as well, but these are the ones that like I want to make sure I make progress on, so I'm tracking it. Other ones I've made progress in is I finally finished the Farseer trilogy, I finished the Greenbone Saga, Winternight trilogy, but yeah, other than that, not a ton of progress happening. I definitely want to prioritize series for the rest of the year. For my classics reading plan, so far I've only read The Brothers Karamazov and Little Women. I did skip The Picture of Dorian Gray, but I did technically put it in winter, so maybe I'll read it in December and make it like winter 2026. I think that would still count for my reading plan. Next up is I want to read Emma in the coming months and then Rebecca in the fall. And then for my reading goals as well, I think I'm doing pretty good here, especially because I have a couple of Swedish books that I know I'm reading in July, so that's gonna get filled up. I know I have some more classics with the reading plan coming. I guess the main point I need to make more effort on is translated books for modern translations, because I have a bunch on my physical TBR that I just haven't made myself pick up yet, so I definitely need to get around to that. And then here I added a line once I filled up all the boxes so I can keep track of how many. And then I go into all of my monthly trackers. They're not the most exciting, but they really are clean and functional for me and allow me to test out my sticker printer that I've been enjoying using. For each tracker, I basically do a calendar tracker where it tracks how long I take to read each book, and then I can sort of see which books overlap with each other and which ones I was reading at the same time. I track how many of each genre I read and make a little graph for how many stars. Like I read 1 5-star in January, 3 4-stars, 3 3-stars, and 1 2-star book. And then I write down some of my favorite quotes from the month as well. Then I also do a star rating page, just like where I print out the titles. I sometimes tried to do a little sticker theme for some of these pages. Didn't turn out perfectly, but the main part is that it's clear that I can read the star symbols, and I do like how this page turned out because I only read 8 books in January, so I was able to make the pictures much bigger. You'll see it's not the case for the other months. And then this was the only spread I did in January. As you can see, it's very rudimentary, but I did a spread for getting out of a reading slump in like a step format, and then a page specifically for my 5-star read of January, which was Bitch by Lucy Cook. But I also shouted out the 4 5-star stories within the short story collection that I read. For February, I managed to get to my whole TBR, which is awesome. Here's my tracker. I tried to do some little Valentine's touches for February, and I actually read so many books with quotes that I liked in February that I ended up making just one quote page. This was mostly with Harrow the Ninth, but you can also see there were a lot of amazing quotes from Intermezzo, The Golden Raven, and other books that I just wanted to make sure I recorded because I was getting a lot of great quotes this month. So I made a full page just for quotes to keep track of. Here's all the books I read in February. You can see my monthly wrap-ups if you want more details on all of these, but this was one of my spreads with like smaller book covers so you can see, and I was also testing out how the printer worked. In the beginning, I was cutting off the tops or the bottoms of some of the book titles, but I think I figured out near like May, but you'll see some of them get a little bit quirky like that. And then I didn't really know what else I wanted to do for February, so I ended up doing these like Pinterest-esque pages for my 2 5-star reads, Jade War and Hera the Ninth, but I didn't credit the fan art here because it's just like my personal journal, so I don't really want to show it on here, but if you recognize any of these artists, feel free to give them a shout out, but unfortunately I didn't credit artists in my own journal, so we'll skip that briefly, but I do love all of this art, and I like how the Pinterest-like pages turned out. And then we move on to March, where I did like a green theme, my full monthly tracker, my favorite quotes. And I was also trying to experiment with layering some of my stickers from my nature sticker book. Which sticker book is that? I got it from Etsy. I don't know where it is. This one, Deco Stickers. It's just like pretty naturey stickers. I bought this so long ago. I'm not really good at buying stickers. If you guys have any recommendations for places to get affordable stickers for journaling, because I have so few of them that I'm like really scared to use them sometimes. So that's why the pages are so blank, but I want to get better at using my stickers. And then I did 2 spreads in March. I did like an academia arc page just to celebrate how many nonfictions I read in March, because I ended up reading 8 nonfiction books in like the March-April period, pretty much all of them on audiobook, and so I ranked them here from best to worst, but still pretty good. The lowest I read was 3.5 stars. And then I did a Snowy Reads page that's supposed to look like a ski map, and a romances page, cutting some of my heart stickers in half for some of the books I didn't like, and then keeping it whole for the one book that I did like. For April, I still haven't managed to get around to The Wretched of the Earth. It is a lot more dense than I thought it would be, so I definitely need to dedicate some time to really sit down and work on that one. So many books were read in April, though. This is one of my busiest overlapping reading trackers, and the majority of which was sci-fi, because that's the month I did my sci-fi reading vlog, and the majority of which I liked a lot. And then here is my April reading page. I try to do something abstract. And then I have my spring TBR page, and just a page basically where I just recorded which books I read for which videos, because the majority of books I read in April were for videos. I also did I finished my spring TBR. I should check that off. Here. Bam. I finished it in June, but you know what? That's fine. So I've actually read all the books in my spring TBR, which I love. And then I drew these flowers down here, just bringing back some of the art. And then I'm really, really happy with how this spread turned out. This is my sci-fi spread, where I used some star paper with some black construction paper underneath and layered it. And then I drew this like fan art, or like art that's supposed to represent Infinity Gate, because I couldn't find any fan art for the book online because it's so niche. So I was like, I have to make my own. So basically just like a play on the cover of the book where you can see all of these like slices of Earth. I just did like an expanded version of that. And then I put covers of all the sci-fi books I read for that video, and then all the books I wanted to read next of sci-fi. I've only gotten to one of them. We're getting around to it. We need to get back to the sci-fi soon. And then for May, I've managed to get to my whole monthly TBR there. And then my super confusing book tracker, because I had a lot of carryover books into June, and I thought I would finish Little Women in May, so I wrote it in here, but I didn't actually end up finishing it in May, so that really shouldn't be on there, but it's fine. And my quotes, a lot fewer 5 stars. I think I mentioned this in my reading wrap up for this month, but way more middle of the pack books in May. I'm not really a huge fan of how this turned out. I was trying to do like a cool layout. If I didn't have this like extra book, like if it had just been a 12 book reading month, I think I would have liked this better. But unfortunately, A Natural History of Dragons up there kind of unbalances it. But I did try to use some of my stickers that I've had laying around, and I do kind of like how that turned out in general. And then I did a spread because I visited Berlin in May and I wanted to do like kind of a map look of all the bookshops I went to. This is not an accurate map for anyone from Berlin or Germany who's distressed by this. It's not meant to be an accurate map. It's just meant to be like a compressed comic version where all the different bookshops I went to were and all of the different TBR recommendations I got. So any books I added to my TBR while I was in Berlin, I recorded which bookshop I found them at, which I think is fun. So then when I read them, I can come back to here and I know which bookshop gave me the recommendation to begin with. And then we get to June, and this last month is where I've tried to get back into like art and journaling more, so I tried to like put a little bit more effort into this. I haven't gotten to Rogue Protocol by Martha Wells yet. That needs to come up soon. Kind of a cleaner monthly tracker. I didn't have as much overlap with my books. I tried to finish one before I started another one. And the majority fantasy and the majority romances, oddly. I think this is the first month of the year where I actually read a lot of romances, some of which were really good. So I'm back in my romance arc for sure. Here are all the books I read in June. I got the chance to use some of my summer stickers that I picked up from just a bookshop in Norway when I was there. And then this spread looks so quirky because my printer, when I was doing this, like this week, ran out of blue ink. So they printed it all in yellow, and I was like, I'm not gonna be able to get blue ink before I wanna film this video. So I was like, screw it. We're gonna put in all these like yellow-green versions of the cover so you can see what it's supposed to look like. But basically, it's a series progress page, the 2 series that I finished in June, and then 2 new series that I started, you know, like it's the law of balances. I finished 2 series, but I started 2 more. And then I'm currently making a fantasy like reading list for myself for the rest of the summer because I don't want them to overlap, but I want to make sure I get through them all. So right now I'm reading Valor, and then I'm planning on taking them in this order, with Ship of Magic coming last, and getting through my entire fantasy TBR for the summer. And then I drew a little castle. And then lastly, we can end on my mid-year reading status. See, like this is the most high effort spread in here because I finally realized recently, I was like, I can go back to my drawing roots and use like colored pencils more, honestly. But overall, I've read 82 books, 14 5 stars, almost 30,000 total pages read. I've started 10 series, but I've finished 11, so you know, net negative. And I've reread 6 books. I also have a breakdown of which genres I'm reading the most from both fantasy and nonfiction, which is a new entry to the genre breakdown this year. But sci-fi is right up there afterwards, and then I have all the other smaller sections. I made a graph for the pages read each month, so you can kind of like visualize which months I was reading the most. This aligns pretty much with what I expected. Same with star ratings. This looks pretty much the same. Here, I'll show you my 2024 summary page. Looks like this. You see the majority of books I read were 5 stars, and then I said I wanted to start getting stricter with my 5 stars and literally only giving them to like my favorite butterfly in my stomach books of all time. So that's why now the 4-star is the highest one, because I like redirected books into the 4-star column from the 5-star one. But I also feel like this is pretty accurate overall. And then I made a little chart for all the different mediums I've been reading from. I think we're pretty even right now on ebook library, audiobooks, and physical TBR. We'll probably pick up a little bit on physical library and a little bit on ebook TBR in the second half of the year, but overall I'm pretty content with that, I would say. Most of this physical TBR isn't stuff I'm buying just to read. It's like backlog I'm trying to get through, so I'm happy with that. But yeah, with that we're all caught up. I do have my July page almost finished setup. This is like what the blank spread looks like before the month is done. Other than that is where I'm currently at with my reading journal. As you can tell, I'm very, very much a newbie, and I've also been focusing a lot more of my creative energy this year into my travel journal. That's where I feel like scrapbooking is way more my thing than like art journaling. Like I really, really have enjoyed my scrapbooking pursuits for my travel journal. And then I do also have my bullet journal, and I think just between all the journals, it's been a lot of effort that I haven't really had time for totally. So in all honesty, I'm just happy to have the reading journal that I have, where I can reference the books that I'm reading, visualize them more clearly, and that's really all I wanted it for. So it doesn't need to be like perfect and pretty. My main priority is, though, I do want to use up more stickers, my backlog of stickers. I might go through at the end of the year and just add more stickers to all the white spaces I see. But with that, thank you so much for watching my amateur mid-year flip through. I hope that you got at least one idea from this, or at least I hope it's nice to get all the books I've read this year in this like new different format, as opposed to me just talking to you about all of them. But either way, this isn't a journal channel. I'm not trying to be, but I am happy with the work I've put in, and I wanted to share a little bit of it. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. And I will see you in my next video, not journal related, very, very soon. Goodbye.